Mm, yeah. Mm. Whew. Frank Ziska, modern day Diogenes. Written by Greg Huffman and performed right here by your most humblest of authors, obviously. Mahalala. In Jesus' name. Douglas looks up from his guitar. His hands pause from fiddling with the guitar that is sitting in the open case, and he glances over at Bill while shaking his head. God dang you, Bill, do you have to do that silly business again? Asked Douglas. That Glossia. Frank looks up from or glances up from his book at the two of them and helps Douglas on his way. Glossolalia. Thank you there, Frank, Doug says. Doug, you should really think about inviting Jesus into your heart, and maybe you wouldn't be so cynical all the time, says Bill. No, thanks, Bill. I already have enough clogging my heart as it is. All three of them are elderly fellows. Doug is a bald black man with some gray whiskers for a mustache. Bill is a balding, Jewish-looking fellow with big, naive eyes and well built despite his condition. Mr. Frank Ziska is a disheveled fellow who Douglas likens to an emaciated Jesse the Body Ventura. They sit in a moving freight car with Frank's lantern as their only source of light. Douglas pulls out his guitar and says, "How about a song, fellas? What should I play? How about 'I'm lost and can't find my way home'?" Frank turns a page, points to the lantern, and says, "Please, you two have made enough noise as it is. Just calm down and relax a little. I want to use this lantern to read, and I don't need you guys bickering and distracting." Well, I guess that'll just have to be alright, won't it? I guess Mr. Ziska here needs his light. I guess I don't need to play my guitar after all, do I? Suppose I can just give up on what I want to do so you can enjoy yourself. Frank seemingly pays no heed. Actually, pay no attention. Whatever. And what is Mr. Frank Ziska reading today, huh? Frank is lounging in a pair of pajamas with white Velcro shoes that show the accumulation of dirt from his travels. Frank puts one finger to his left nostril to close it and blows his right nostril clean, but doesn't respond to the quarry. Douglas leans over and inclines the book to identify it. Douglas laughs for a bit and says, "Atlas shrugged, huh? Oh, this is fun irony, Frank. I'm sure you can appreciate it, right?" "Maybe I was Atlas, and now I've decided to shrug," Frank responds. "And yet the world goes on without you, doesn't it, Frank?" Maybe when Atlas shrugs. The inhabitants of the world are initially unwilling, but must adapt and hold the world up together. I know you love your philosophers, Frank, but would you like to hear what the wise and honorable philosopher Testacles has to say about these matters, Doug jokes? "That's cute, Doug. Having some fun by mixing a dick joke with the Greek language," says Frank. "Oh, whatever, we can talk about Testacles later, but I'd hate to make you forget what you were reading about, so please, by all means, Mr. Ziska, get back to it," responds Douglas. "It's fine, I'm taking advantage of the Zygarnik effect," says Frank. Douglas shakes his head and laughs. "You know, Frank, sometimes I think you don't even know what you mean when you say the shit you say. It's all a bunch of pseudo-intellectual garbage." Frank says, "Doug, I know you think my head is up my own ass. No, Frank, I know you're so full of shit there's no room left to fit your head up there." Frank smirks and says, "Ha, anyway, you calling me a pseudo-intellectual is basically the opposite of a backhanded compliment. Some of us say a back-patting insult, since I do know what I mean when I use the words I choose to use. I think the word you're looking for is pretentious, isn't it, Douglas?" "Yes, yes, I guess we can compromise with that word," Douglas responded. "No, I'm not compromising. I'm not agreeing with you. That is what I am. Merely I'm helping you correct your own subjective conclusions about me." Bill finally decided to get in on the conversation. "Frank, if you like reading books so much, why don't you try reading the Bible?" "I did read it once a long time ago," Bill says. "Well, I've read it 3 times, so I think I actually know more than you do about something for once, Frank." Frank responds, "I'm sorry that your memory has faded or that your power of recollection isn't as gifted as mine, but I read it once and that was enough." Bill frowns and looks down. I'm sorry, Bill. Douglas and I just Get heated up and we banter. I didn't mean to take it out on you, Frank says apologetically. It's fine, Bill says. Now, Bill, Douglas chimes in the environs we are going to be headed towards, you might get to see a jackalope. What's that? Bill asks. Oh, you've never heard of them before, have you really? Nope. Frank starts to say something, but Douglas cuts him off. Whoa, 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 Frank. Now let me explain what I'm trying to explain here. Okay, look now, Bill. The jackalope is a mix between a jackrabbit, okay, and it has antelope horns. They are rare, but they exist in this part of the country. Bill's eyes light up. Bill says, wow, I can't wait. Frank shakes his head. The train begins to slow down until it comes to a complete stop. Frank says, Number 47, Tennessee, we're here, and blows out the lantern. All three of them hop out of the train car. Doug has his guitar case with him, and Frank snatches up his lantern. They begin walking down the road, trees surrounding them. The wise Testicles says that you can either have fun or you can spend your time learning new things, die and forget it all, says Doug. You just had to get one of those stupid jokes in, didn't you? Anyway, I'm having fun, Frank, says Frank. Welcome to the tree state, boys. Nature sure is beautiful, isn't it? Doug says. Frank jumps in. Sure, when all you've seen is the worst man can offer, the best offerings of nature looks wonderful. But nature is too harsh to enjoy for too long, and it's best to enjoy in short bouts, because the grass always looks greener on the other side, which is fitting to say at this opportunity. But it is beautiful by contrast, because all we have seen are the dilapidated structures that man gave up on, whereas nature looks best when completely abandoned by man. Thought you were having fun, Frank. I am. I just enjoy being polemic with you, Douglas, says Frank while grinning. Doug responds, Well, shit, Frank. What about all that noise pollution, light pollution we have to deal with? Doesn't this relax your ears and your eyes? Frank says, Sure it does, but too much quiet has the same effect as too much noise, whereas as Aristotle says that we need a golden balance. We need a little of both. Nature won't feed my belly, which is why we're passing through nature to eat shit. Through nature to eat. Oh, not eat shit. My bad. I don't know why I did that. Alright, the wise Testicles says, Shut the fuck up with the Aristotle bullshit, Frank. Maybe that's why. Frank adjusts his nutsack around in his pajamas while walking. Whoa, we could always catch a scroll or something to eat, like noble savages. Maybe we can find one of those jackalopes sneak down. Maybe they taste good. I might try new foods, Bill says gleefully. And which one of us knows how to set a trap? Which one of us here can run? Any of us have any stamina for that? Douglas turns to Frank. Speaking of, Frank, do you miss owning a house? Why the fuck would I, so I can wake up in the same place every day? Right now, I'm always traveling. Should I need a house to store my shit? What do I have to store? Do I need one so I can invite people over and say, look at all my shit? I carry all my necessities in my brain. A car, ample food, both would both would make me fat and out of shape. I enjoy everything I eat now because I don't know when I'll get to. A job, a job is something to sustain your free time and provide the funds necessary. But a library is free. So what would I buy with it? They say you never know what you had until it's gone. But then, if I got it back, I think I realized that it really was a piece of shit. Douglas says to him, Do you want to die like this? And Frank turns to him and asks, How would you prefer to die? Shit, Frank, I'm not going to lie. I miss owning my own construction business. I miss when we used to all work together there, building houses, producing things. Gave me a sense of purpose, says Doug. We have a goal now, says Frank. I suppose you're right. Sometimes, Frank, I wish I hadn't have dropped out of college, but they stuck me in this math class, man. They handed me a piece of paper and it looked like a fucking calculator. Puked all over the motherfucker, and then they expected me to clean that mess up. Doug paused for a minute. Well, I suppose it wasn't much longer after that when we met in Okinawa, was it? Remember what they remember what they used to call me? Please, Doug, please don't go into your spaceman story again. Well, Bill usually appreciates it when I tell it. Look over at Bill. Bill seems to be closing eyes while he walks and whispering in tongues. Well, that makes sense, says Frank. As you can see, he loves to indulge in superstition. It's not the same, Frank. God dang, you don't understand. They continue walking. Frank tears out a page of Atlas Shrugs and dips his hand into the back of his pajamas and into his ass crack. The fuck, Frank? What? It's a page already read. The fuck is wrong with you these days? Wasn't even shit. I just had a sweat in my ass. It's not a big deal, Douglas. Douglas shakes his head as Frank continues. I'm just respecting the book like a butcher does one of the animals that he must carve up, trying to use every part that he can and letting as little go to waste as possible. I'm respecting the book by not letting it go to waste. As they walk, Doug looks at Bill's hands. Shit, Bill, what the fuck is wrong with your hands? It's fine, they just swell up sometimes when I go on walks. Are you gonna be okay, man? Yeah, I'm fine. It happens all the time. Shit, man, I've heard claim of it before, but I think you might literally be allergic to exercise. Doug starts laughing. Sorry, man, but it's funny shit, I can't help it. Look, guys, Bill shouts a trail. Douglas says, probably shouldn't be running off on no trail in the middle of the night, Bill. You mean because of the jackalopes? No. Yeah, because of them. Also because this is Appalachian territory, Bill. We could all get deliverance rapes. Besides, when the sun comes up and when we reach Gatlinburg, we will have plenty of time to fuck around amongst the bushes and trees. Right now, we need to get into town, though. All right, Bill? Bill pauses for a moment. Says, so, Doug, you said we were gonna tell you're gonna tell your spaceman story again? He's not going to tell the fucking spaceman story again, says Frank. I told you, says Douglas while smirking at Frank. Frank picks his nose. Doug reminisces for a while, and Bill begins praying. Lights are seen out in the distance. I think that's an 18-wheeler, pals. Maybe I score us a ride. Use a ride, says Frank. Ass, gas, and grass. Haven't you ever heard that saying before, Frank? No one rides for free. How big of a favor are you going to do for him? Asks Frank. You let me handle that, says Frank, as he sticks out a hitchhiker thumb. Truck stops and Frank walks up to the door to have a chat with the driver. Doug turns to Bill. Say, Bill, what are your views on homosexuality? I think it's an abomination of God. Well, if it wasn't for the fact that I think Frank might already be a walking abomination of God, or at least nature, I might tell you to take the path of the three monkeys, but I suppose it's too late for that. Frank runs back to Doug and Bill and says, all right, pal, you guys, we got ourselves a ride. You two jump in the back. They do so, and Frank hops in the front, and the truck departs. The trucker pulls his pants down, and Frank braves the obstacle in the way of his mission as he endures a taste of dirty sweat, urine, and the acrid sensation of battery acid. Bill and Douglas are sitting alone in the back of the truck. Well, Bill, you've been quite taciturn lately. What's on your mind? I feel that good things are in store for us, Douglas. I think God has a plan for all of us, and we will all be happy once our mission is complete. I think God will reward us for seeing it through. I don't think the gods care too much for me, Bill. There's only one God, Doug, but God hating the spaceman, that is nonsense. Well, I guess whatever happens will happen, and that will just have to be alright, then, won't it? You will see, Doug. You will see. Frank joins him. So, Frank, did you do him a big favor? As Douglas, trust me, it was a rather small favor. I'm surprised you handled this shit so well, Frank. I'd be pissed off. Well, I've heard the saying that it's better to be pissed off than to be pissed on. Maybe I got the worst of the outcome since it tastes like getting pissed on. Bill responds, but the wise Testicles tells us if getting pissed on doesn't piss you off, maybe you enjoy it. Frank doesn't respond, so Doug continues. Took up for you the other day, Frank. Someone said you must be homosexual, so I told them that to be a homosexual, you had to enjoy sucking dicks, and you don't enjoy doing what you do. Well, maybe I did. Bill says, I just wish we were in Gatlinburg by now. Well, wish in one hand and masturbate in the other and see which one fills up faster, Bill, said Douglas. Oh, that reminds me, says Frank as he gets up, turns around from Bill and Doug. Frank drops his pants and starts stroking. The fuck, Frank? Frank grunts and shoots his load into his hands and pulls up his pants. Turns around, starts laughing, streaks his hands through his hair. I just needed something to keep the wind from blowing my hair into my eyes. That's some gross shit, Frank. Why do you do that? You keep telling me I lost my shit in Okinawa. Well, look at what you're becoming. And with the amount of grease in your hair, don't expect me to buy that story anyway. The fuck I think you would get off on. Doug paused for a minute, wishing he had used a different word. Trying to fuck with me and gross me out. Bill doesn't say anything, almost if he doesn't understand what just occurred. Frank, still laughing, says, you know, people that don't know me always refer to me as stranger. From now on, I think my friends will refer to me as strangest. The truck comes to a stop, and the three of them pour out. They finally arrive at a homeless shelter. Man, I'm glad we finally got here. I hope they have some food and shit, says Douglas. If I haven't lost my fucking appetite because you, Frank, you've really been acting weird lately, like weirder than normal. Frank responds, wonder if you say that because I'm actually acting weird, which is normal for me, or if I'm acting normal for once, which is weird for me. They walk into the building, and they have to go through a process. One of the gentlemen working there takes them into his office, and they line up. Behind them is another fellow that is operating the shelter. The person talking to them asks for their name and some information about them. The person behind them surprises them when his first words, a question, is, so, have you gentlemen been saved by our Lord Jesus Christ? Doug and Frank nod slowly and reluctantly. silently while Bill nods eagerly. Yep, says Douglas. Yes, says Frank. Yes, sir, says Bill. The gang is finally fed and they begin to socialize in the cafeteria. Frank, the misanthrope, sits alone in a corner. Douglas takes up his guitar finally. Bill sits watching him play while telling jokes and stories between songs. What do you fellas think about my Cubert guitar? You know, like that video game where you bounce up and down on those 3D cubes? The guitar that Douglas owns is black and white and has layered 3D blocks, just like in the mentioned video game. Let me tell you, gentlemen, about a friend I had that tried to commit suicide by overdosing on antidepressants. However, he took two and he felt better, so he decided not to take the rest. A few scattered laughs are heard. Okay, so who likes Tom Petty? Douglas begins playing Won't Back Down. Hey, are you Frank? My name is Carl. A man walking up to Frank says, your friend Douglas was talking about you. Well, that is awful kind of him. So why aren't you being as noisy as the rest of these fellows you see here, Frank? Says when everyone is shouting. Oh, when Frank says when everyone is shouting, the quiet man shouts loudest. Carl asks, "The hell's that supposed to mean?" Doesn't mean shit. I'm just a pretentious asshole spouting purple prose, or rather, I'm pseudo-intellectual since I just say shit that sounds like it means something to confuse people, and I just end up confusing myself. I like making people think, Carl, but more importantly, I like making people waste their time while thinking. I like to put them on a path that leads to a dead end. Do you understand? No, I don't, but we have plenty of crazy people here, so just like you, says Carl. Like me, probably not. Well, maybe in some ways I suppose they are, or at least could be. Well, it was nice meeting you, Frank. And I've had a wonderful evening, but this wasn't it, says Frank. Say what, asks Carl? I'm just fucking with you yet again. I'm simply quoting Paraprosdokian of Groucho Marx. Ha, crazy bastard. And Carl walks off. Douglas finishes up the song he was playing, takes a sip of his soda. Carl asks him, Hey Douglas, do you need some ice for your drink? The infallible Testicles says that ice don't exist to put a time limit on one's drink, so I shall refuse on this wise philosopher's sound advice, but thanks for asking, old chap. However, you may shine my shoes, servant. Hey, fuck you, man, Carl says while laughing. Besides, I don't think you can shine sneakers, you retard. They continue their jocular exchange. What do you call me? Someone may accuse you of having a lot of balls to say something like that to me. But I've got your back, friend. I'll take up for you and set them straight and tell them that they have you all wrong. You have no balls. Carl chuckles and says, Good one, you cocksucker. What's that again? I must be getting deaf in my old age. Would you step a bit closer so that I may hear you? Carl responds, You kidding? You smell awful. I'm not going near you. Well, then tell your mother to wash that stinky pussy of hers because I was in it all night. I didn't enjoy your mother that much either, Doug, because she sucks dick. Ed's sucking dick. Doug nods and says, Carl, I like you. Some people also like eating cat shit, so I suppose what one likes doesn't carry much merit these days. Alright, who wants to hear the story about how I got the nickname Spaceman? Bill says eagerly, Yes, tell it. Carl says, I like to hear your story. Frank puts his palm to his face and shakes his head. Douglas puts his guitar down, takes a sip of his cola. You see, me and my friend Frank there, Doug points to Frank, we're in the military together. We served in Okinawa. While over there, a buddy of mine had a box of cereal. I looked at him and said, if you reach the bottom of that bag of cereal, you'll find an astronaut toy. And sure enough, he reached in there, pulled out an astronaut. He was astonished. I asked him how the fuck I knew and asked me how the fuck I knew what was in the box. I told him I just knew it. He handed me the figurine, and ever since people call me Spaceman. Carl claps and says, Good story. Douglas responds, Cool down, friend, that's not the end of this tale. After he gave me the Spaceman figurine, it gave me, well, powers, I guess you could say. One day when my Marine buddies and I were driving around town, I held the Spaceman in my hand and told them to look up at the skies. When they did, the cloud above us turned into a rocket ship, and then it began to rain. Doug paused for a moment. I began using the telekinesis it gave me to alter the way people shot and pulled. If I focused my mind on the ball would switch directions, and I could make a good bit of money this way. Doug paused again. Then one day, while sitting on the toilet, I started to black out, and I could feel demons trying to pull me into the toilet. Douglas paused. When I finally arrived back home from Okinawa, I turned on the news to find out that 6 tornadoes were following me. Whenever I passed under a street lamp, the lamp would flicker. Ever since then, I knew the gods were out to get me. One day, while I was out on a walk, I touched a flower. It was a different color than the other flowers in the vicinity, and it wasn't budding. I touched it and it opened. Inside was Frank interrupted and said, "Aren't you being a bit mendacious?" A few people booed the interruption. Oh, I don't mind Frank here. He's just jealous, despite the fact he was imbued with being a genius that pales in comparison to be chosen for something truly great like myself. I'm not sure if anyone here has heard of a documentary called Random Lunacy or not, or if anyone has ever heard of a fellow by the name of Papa Neutrino or not, but Mr. Frank Ziska kind of reminds me of that dude. Mr. Ziska here thinks that just because he was descended from some one-eyed general that he's special and he knows everything, don't you, Frank? Frank has no armies to lead, and he never gave birth to any families. Frank responds, I never claimed to be descended from John Ziska. However, I believe Plato once said something about how every person should give birth, if not to a child, then at least to an idea. I think I've been pregnant with an idea, though no idea how long it will come to term, nor how I will introduce this child to the world. But rest assured, as far as mental fecundity is concerned, I'm not barren. However, you, Douglas, are simply giving birth to surrogate babies where the rightful mother is LSD. Doug speaks. Oh, I see. So you think that I did a lot of drugs during those days? Well, maybe I did. Maybe it's all bullshit. Maybe everything's meaningless. I should just walk around like you, pulling my pajamas out of my ass crack and blowing my nose in public. Fuck it. Doug lifts up his legs and farts. Everyone laughs. Is it crime yet if I'm a Putin? Is it a crime if I'm a Putin out of my Ukraine? Everyone crack up. Hell, let's just get back to some more music. Who wants to hear me play Johnny Cash's I Hurt Myself Today? He begins to pick up his guitar. You know what? Speaking of politics, I know what it's like to be in war. And so do you, Mr. Ziska, descendant of the great general. Who here thinks the Iraq War is a good idea? Everyone boos and a few shouts of fuck no are heard. Well, this genius over here supported George Bush and thought it was a great idea, didn't you, Frank? Carl says, I think can all agree that was a bad idea. You know what they say about minds that think alike, don't you? Frank responds, I'm well aware of the saying regarding great minds and thinking alike, but if I may throw in my few cents, I think the saying should be inverted. It seems much more the case that morons all seem to think alike, and geniuses tend to think for themselves. No, I never supported George Bush. I do, however, think from a philosophical foundation that the Iraq War was a good idea. It was just it was the just thing to do. And Carl, if you had $1 for every brain cell in your head, you'd have a fucking quarter. Carl says, now hold on, Frank. Do you know how many people died in the Iraq War? Do you know what our soldiers did to innocent people? Are you really such a colonialist that you think it's alright for one country to invade another? And based on a lie about weapons of mass destruction, please provide some detailed answers. Frank responds, right, so let's say that we know a certain criminal is at this location. We need information that he is holding a knife. Now this criminal, we know for sure that he is a murderer and has been in possession of knives before. So the cops apprehend the suspect, and no knife is found. Do we just stand back and say, whoa, 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 we thought he had a knife, but now that we know he doesn't, we have to let him go. Is that what we should say? Carl interrupts and says, so you think America has the right to be your own police, and who voted for them to be? Frank says, so let's try to dig our blade deep into this Gordian knot. So we may really try to finally slice it open. Did you vote for the cops to be in existence here in America? We need cops, even if they sometimes do the wrong thing and sometimes they are assholes. Sure, we need to sometimes risk more lives than we save in order to keep our principle of justice alive. When the Kurds were being threatened with genocide, should we have stepped back and practiced utilitarian ethics and done the moral math, or should we stick to the deontological path of doing what is right no matter what the loss is? Sometimes no, every time it is worth it to save one captive soldier, even if many soldiers die in the mission. Even more so if it's an innocent civilian. The soldier has said he was willing to die for a cause, but the civilian hasn't volunteered to play this game. As long as the army wasn't a drafted army, then it is morally sound. No, I don't think the approach we took was right. I believe in liberation, but not occupation. Carl mulls over what was said for a moment and responds, seems like a reasonable answer, but I've just never found myself capable of stomaching much of the nutty, greedy, right-wing bullshit. Not that I'd call myself a liberal either, but I would call myself a Democrat. You make a good case. Well, see, where your dichotomous thinking has gotten us. I'm not a far right-wing guy or Republican. nor do I consider myself conservative. If anything, I usually label myself a liberal, though since liberals aren't so liberal anymore, I suppose I must accept the title of libertarian, says Frank. But I assume you don't vote that way. That would be wasting your vote. Am I correct in my assumption? Frank responds, voting for a third party is a wasted vote. No, my friend, it's the only game in town if you want your vote to count at all. Why vote for either of the two main parties? They already know that they're going to win, and they don't plan on changing things up one bit. So you vote for the party that wins, maybe? So what? How does that make your vote count? They laugh at your vote. They could throw it away and win without it. However, if you vote for third party, then your vote does truly count. For one thing, your vote is a proportionately larger as a percentage influence than it would have been voting for one of the expected parties. But more importantly, you're actually voting for something rather than just voting for the status quo. If you vote for either a Democrat or a Republican, you are just showing up to say, yeah, I'm fine with things the way they are, which may be true, but you could just as easily do that at home without voting at all, and thus saving your precious time. Even if they won't win, it's still worth it to vote for them because it will mean more to the cause than voting for the team that doesn't need nor care about your vote. No, the only way to not waste your vote is to vote for the underdog and to try to shake up the system. Huh. Another well-argued point. Douglas, you may have something here after all, says Carl. Doug sips his drink and responds, well, don't look at me. I just play the guitar. I'll leave the kazoo string up to the sophist and you, Carl. Bill finally speaks, and Frank and I are both in agreement in that we both oppose gay marriage. Another failure of dichotomous thinking, thus proving the dangerous aspects of it. The idea that you and I agree on this issue is totally fallacious. Sure, I'm against gay marriage, but I'm also against heterosexual marriage. Well, at least I agree with you that it was smart to liberate the Kurds from that genocidal maniac, Saddam Hussein. Douglas gets involved and says, Bill, do you even know what area the Kurds are from? Of course I do. Kurdville. Everyone starts laughing. Douglas says, Bill, did you know what the word, did you know that the word global isn't in the dictionary? It isn't? Bill asks. Frank says, no, because it's on the ceiling. Bill looks up. Everyone starts laughing. Bill smiles and looks back down at everyone. Then Bill looks back up. I still don't see it up there. Frank and Douglas both pat Bill on the back. Doug says, don't worry, Bill. We aren't laughing at you. We're just laughing with the people that are laughing at you. Frank Ziska spots a fortune cookie laying on the table. He picks it up, unwraps it, and breaks it into two. He crumples up the fortune inside without even glancing at it and throws it into the trash. He then throws the two bits into his mouth. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Bill says, oh, so did Douglas tell you guys about our mission? Carl asks, what mission? We're going to visit each and every state of the continental U.S. And this is number 47. Why, Carl asks. No, seems like fun to me. Carl turns to Douglas and repeats, why? Well, it's better than sitting around waiting to die, isn't it? I've always wanted to travel when you don't have a house or a family or a business to run it. Makes it a lot easier, don't it? I mean, in the sense that you don't have those things to stick around and take care of, says Doug. Few guys are this devoted to a goal that you would go to all this trouble just to accomplish something so silly. Why not actually do something that would make you a success? Asked Carl. What does it mean to be successful? Asked Frank. To own a car, a house, to have a nice job, to be able to eat at fancy restaurants and visit Disneyland, says Carl. Is that objectively what success is, or is that success just for the individual who wanted that and achieved that? Or is success decided by subjective consensus? I think the objective definition of being successful is to successfully become happy, and that the path that will lead you to that state is subjective to the individual's taste. Success shouldn't be decided by others or economic situation. It should be decided by the man who defines himself as successful and genuinely believes that to be true. Because that man is a happy man and happiness is the ultimate success, speaks Frank Ziska. And do you consider yourself happy? Asks Carl. I think that I am, says Frank. You don't seem that happy, says Carl. What do you expect a happy man to look like? Do you expect him to hop around with a big stupid grin on his face while avidly whistling away at his work? I don't want to be that kind of happy. I just want to enjoy the moments of my life without feeling depressed or pessimistic or cynical, like Douglas tends to be these days, says Frank. And we are headed out to Gatlinburg in the morning, and then we will cross over into number 48, North Carolina, the following day, says Bill. Well, I wish good luck to you fellas for sure, and I hope it brings you the happiness you expect it to, says Carl. I don't want to say something cliche like how it isn't the destination, but it's about the journey. However, I do feel that we are taking the right path by setting little waypoints for ourselves. Each and every new state we enter brings a sense of accomplishment. So it's not necessarily about the journey or the big destination, but the little waypoints in between. I think that is what happiness is all about. Finding little successes as you go along your route, speaks Frank Ziska. One of the fellows running the shelter appears and asks to speak to the three of them. Since we have performed a miscalculation, good sirs, we are a little short regarding the bed situation. We only have 2 beds free for the lot of you. So if you chaps still want to stay, I'm afraid you'll have to dismiss one of your fellows, says the shelter worker. All 3 of them shake their head, and Douglas says, no, we couldn't possibly abandon each other. Well, then it seems you fellows will have to find yourselves another place to stay for the night, says the worker. The worker then walks off. Carl says, damn, this sucks, man. What are you guys gonna do? Well, I guess we'll just have to be alright, won't we? I suppose I don't need to sleep on no bed tonight. Suppose I can just sleep out in the alleyway. Might rain tonight, but I guess that will just have to be alright, won't it? I mean, I like sleeping in a bed, but then again, some people like to eat cat shit, and others like to suck trucker dicks, so guess I'll just have to be alright, because opinions don't count for much these days anyway, speaks Douglas. Frank says, opinions are like assholes. If you don't have one, then you're full of shit. Carl says, ha, you guys crack me up, you stupid sons of bitches. Hey, Carl, what's the difference between you and a baby? Asked Doug. What's that? Asked Carl. The baby has seen a pussy in the last 6 months. Good one. Hey, guys, did you know that Douglas here won a staring contest with the mirror? Yeah, he stared at it and it shattered. Hey, Carl, did you ever attempt suicide beating your face in with an ugly stick? Because I can tell you got pretty close. Make like an asexual and go fuck yourself. Doug says, alright, see you later, masturbator. After a while, pedophile, responds Carl. Carl walks off into the sleeping quarters. Our 3 travelers depart from the homeless shelter, back into the dark night. They began walking aimlessly. Frank, maybe Carl was right. Maybe we should have higher standards for the goals we set, says Douglas. What are the benefits of high standards? Lower standards provide you with a longer list of satisfying options that are easier to attain, says Frank. Maybe you're right. I enjoy that we are doing, but no, man. Look, says Frank. We have almost completed our mission. If you can think of something to aim for once this is over with, we can discuss it then. Well, I think we do have some important small goals we might need to be considering right now. What's that? Asked Frank. Where the fuck are we gonna sleep? Asked Doug. Frank surveys the area. That looks like a car lot over there. Maybe we should go sneak into one of those cars and spend the night inside there, says Frank. It looks spooky, says Bill. I agree with Bill, but I'm sleepy as shit, says Doug. We should flip a quarter to decide whether we sleep here or keep walking, suggests Bill. You expect any of us to have any money on us? Asks Frank. Hold on, man. I do have this lucky wheat penny, says Douglas. Alright, that'll do. If it lands on heads, we head on. If it lands on tails, we park our tails here, says Frank. Douglas and Bill nod. Doug throws the penny up in the air and it lands on the street. All 3 of them bend over, squint their eyes. Tails, says Frank. Lucky penny in my ass. Fuck this spot. Let's keep walking, fellas. I can get an airy vibe from this place, says Douglas. Frank chuckles. Well. 2 superstitions battling out. How do you decide which one to put your faith in, the penny or the intuition? Asked Frank. Shut 'em walk, says Doug. The group finally arrives at their bridge by the highway. Alright, now this seems like a decent place to lay our heads, doesn't it, Bill? Doesn't it, Frank? Bill nods. Sure, says Frank. They walk up to the side of the bridge and lay down there. Frank pulls out his book. Oh shit, exclaims Frank. What's the matter, asked Douglas? I have my fucking lantern on that truck. Well, guess you can wait till morning to read then, can't you, Frank? But reading also helps me get all soporific. Yeah, I know what you mean. I mostly read to help me go to sleep. It's funny. Reading is one of those activities that's both hard work, yet is also associated with sleep. I wonder what the great Testicles have to say on this matter, says Doug. Frank lay down and stared up the bridge, blocking the stars. We are too independent. Do you know that, Doug? How so? Asked Doug. People always speak of the virtues of independence, but we don't live in an independent world. We don't? Asked Doug. No. We all depend on the sun to rise and our cars to run. Everything is interdependent. You have to learn to please people, Douglas. You can't be self-sufficient and make anything of yourself. The world demands specialization. Specialization means that we must all be interdependent on each other. Huh, says Doug. No one appreciates how well off they are these days. They imagine how good it would be to be king. Do you realize that they live better than any king of the Middle Ages ever did? None of these kings had air conditioning, movies, video games, cell phones, or refrigerators. They had a shit in a chamber pot because they had no plumbing system. No one appreciates how well off they are. The whole town would smell like shit back then because feces would be flung into the streets. The trickle down system works after all. People understood what it meant. Doesn't mean that income equality will be reduced, but rather it means that even if you suffer the worst income inequality, you will still get some of the benefits of a modern society passed to you. Or rather, technological benefits will trickle down to you. Money won't trickle down, but reduced prices will. Even us, we are all capable of reading. We're all literate. Even if some of us refuse to take advantage of that. We just got fed a decent meal earlier, and we enjoyed an air-conditioned building. You got to play the guitar and socialize, but no one understands that things are only getting better year after year. What is the chief concern about poor people these days? That they are obese? That they eat like shit and could die of a heart attack from overconsumption? I could imagine the impoverished people of long ago fantasizing a future utopia where even the poorest citizens of the country would be able to die the perfect death, eating until their arteries clogged and they died of being too fucking fat. We're living the dream, man. People are bitching about consumerism. The complaint being that we have too much shit and too much distraction. Distraction from what? Misery? Are we forgetting how miserable we used to be before we had so much shit to keep us entertained? Right? Frank, Ziska. Douglas seems to have passed out. Frank looks over at Bill. Bill seems to be spaced out or possibly praying. The problem is a concept called relative deprivation. I learned the term from Malcolm Gladwell, if I recall correctly. Do you guys know that the highest suicide rates are in countries that have the highest standard of living? Turns out to be true. That misery veritably does love company. People don't care about how well off they are if other people have it better than they do. People want to see people suffer as much as they do. I guess it's similar to the crab mentality they speak about in the Philippines, says Frank Ziska. Anyway, it's hot tonight. Taking off my pantaloons. Morning approaches, and our three vagabonds start to toss and turn, still under the bridge. Somebody in the car shouts, "Get a job, you bums!" Frank says, "I've got one. Sitting on my ass 24/7. The pay is shit, but the benefits are worth it." Frank picks up his book to read, but a cop stops under the bridge. The cop and his partner get out and starts to question Frank. "Why don't you have your pants on? It's hot out here. I couldn't sleep." "Put your pants on," says the officer. "Why should I put on clothes that appease your eyes? I feel more comfortable like this. If anyone doesn't feel comfortable staring at me, then they can gladly choose to look the other way. Why should I be forced to be uncomfortable just because the common man doesn't know how to avert his eyes when he sees something he doesn't like?" "There could be kids. Did you think of that?" asked the officer. "Well, God forbid they see a man in his underwear. And shall we outlaw mirrors for children too, so they won't see themselves getting dressed? And shall we forbid them to look down at their bodies when they are in the bath for fear that they might be exposed to images of genitalia, be it their own or not? Why should that matter?" rants Frank Ziska. "Sir, if you don't put your clothes back on, I will haul your ass to jail. Do you understand?" asked the cop. "You would deign to provide free room and board?" asked Frank. The partner says, "Oh shit, Ron. You know we can't haul these bums into jail. They'll only thank us." "Yes," says Frank. "We can't let people think that modern justice is hospitable or anything. Justice is about wrath and punishment, and should only be used to make people happy in the sense that others get a kick out of the suffering of others. That's why jail exists, and why people want hell to exist. We can't stand the sight of everyone having a good time, even our enemies. No, someone needs to suffer while we have a good time. It makes everything complete." Rants Frank Ziska. "Jack, relax. I've got this. Now listen here, bum. I may not arrest you, but I can take you somewhere and beat the shit out of you. No one will care, nor believe you, if you say anything. Do you understand me?" asked Officer Ron. "Well, where a gun begins, morality ends. I will put my pants back on if I am coerced into doing so, whether I believe it to be an injustice or not." Frank puts his pants back on, and Officer Ron and Jack get back in their vehicle. Frank spots a BBQ pork sandwich on the dash of their patrol car. Frank points to the sandwich and says, "Whoa there, boys, that's cannibalism." Officer Ron gives him a look before departing the scene. Douglas is sitting up now and says, "Tsk, tsk, tsk. You know, Frank, sometimes I think you aim to be the rules never one lose." "Good. I'd be honored to finally hold a record." "Mr. Frank Ziska, you really have no dignity at all, do you? Tell me, Douglas, what is the meretricious item you call dignity?" "Respect for yourself and for your body, Frank." So I'm the one disrespecting my body by being comfortable with showing off without any shame to the world? Yes, maybe you're right. Maybe the Muslim man who hides his woman under hijab and more is doing it because of this virtue called dignity. Yes, Islam, not just the religion of peace, but also the religion renowned for respect for women's rights. Dignity is the word used for horse shaming, and is usually followed by a command to hide your shame. But good sir, Douglas, isn't it they should good sir Douglas, isn't it they should hide their shame by shutting the fuck up? Isn't my body mine to respect in my own way? Isn't respect something that the individual can decide, but shouldn't be left up to those outside the individual to decide? Isn't that the whole point of respect? So isn't it they who disrespect me and my body when they say my body shouldn't be seen by those in public? They project shame onto my body, but it is they who feel ashamed. They are ashamed of their human body, but I am not of mine. I am respecting my body by not hiding it. I'm telling my body that I'm not ashamed to be seen in public with it, rants Frank Ziska. Bill asks, is that why you scratch your ass in public then, Frank? Well, you'd like to yourself, wouldn't you, Bill? But that meretricious modesty imprisons you to endure that niggling sensation. What good has modesty done for you or for society? No, true progress would be overcoming threadbare pseudo-virtues like modesty and dignity, says Frank. Another bum on the other side of the road is holding a sign that says, we'll work for food. A van approaches the bum. That's a construction van, Frank. I know one when I see one. I sure miss riding around in one. They overhear the driver of the van offering to give work to the fellow vagrant. The vagrant just grits his teeth and says, get out of here. Keep driving. Well, I guess some people just want the free handouts and would rather not work. Construction isn't a trade for everyone, is it, Frank? Asked Douglas. It wasn't my favorite line of work, but it has its charms, says Frank. Another car pulls up next to our three vagabonds, and a teenager, maybe young adult, steps out. The kid is wearing a shirt that says, eat right, stay fit, die anyway. The kid motions for them to come over. Only Douglas gets up and moseys on over there. He notices that there's another young fellow on the passenger side and another chap in the back seat. Well, hello there, fellas. What is it you need to inquire with me about? Asked Douglas. Look, says the kid, I need some people to ride with us. We have some people we need to fuck up, you understand? I've seen bum fights. I know you fellas are capable of fucking shit up. Because you guys just don't give a fuck anymore. You would slit your mother's neck for a nickel. So if you hobos would be interested in joining my gang for a quick minute, I will. The kid walks around to his trunk and opens it. Be willing to provide you all with some cheese sandwiches. The trunk is filled with cheese sandwiches. Why the fuck do you have so many cheese sandwiches, kid? Asked Frank. So I can recruit an army. You plan on recruiting an army of homeless people to your bidding by luring them out with the promise of a cheese sandwich? Well, some of them have turkey in them, but that costs a bit more. But if you do a good job, who knows, man? Might even give you 2 turkey and cheese sandwiches. Kid, you're crazy, but I'll tell you what, my friend Frank over there, Doug points to him, will probably suck your dick for a sandwich. Hell, he might even suck all 3 of your dicks, so all of us can get a sandwich. Hey, Bill, you want a sandwich? Shouts Doug. Yeah, shouts Bill back. It's only got cheese on it, shouts Doug. I don't mind, shouts Bill. Doug shouts, hey, Frank, come suck this guy's dick so we can get a sandwich. The kid says, no, that's fine. The kid pulls out his wallet and says, look, I have a fat wallet. How about I pay you in cash after the job is done? Douglas laughs and says, kid, the day of the fat wallet symbolizing wealth is over. Now it is a symbol of poverty. The rich now keep all their money on a debit card or a credit card too. Probably have that thing loaded down with store loyalty discount cards. I bet your Food City card got you a great deal on those cheese sandwiches though, didn't it? Frank walks up to him and says, alright, whose dick is I have to suck to get this cheese sandwich? The kid says, you aren't getting any sandwiches for sucking dick, you faggots. Frank says, alright, and points to the kid and then to his friends. I will suck all of your dicks free of charge just because I love it so much. I just ask you to let me swallow because a poor bum like me needs his protein shake. The kid says, if you cocksuckers don't get away from my car right now, I'm going to beat the ever-loving shit out of all of you. Frank leans on the car, staring at the kids inside, and runs his tongue side to side on the window pane. That's it. You motherfuckers! The kid punches Doug in the side of the head, and the two other kids pop out and start wailing on Frank. Bill runs over and pops one of those kids and knocks him out. Frank and Douglas are clutching themselves on the pavement. The kids that are still standing focus their attention on Bill. One grabs him and pushes him up against the car, while the other one unleashes a barrage into his gut. Frank spots a brick laying by the road, picks up, nails the kid, wailing Bill with it. The kid retreats, tends to his injury. Bill headbutts the little shit behind him, breaks his nose. Fucker. The three old bastards get back in the car, drive off. Motherfuckers. Frank laughs. Douglas says, "Shit, Frank, you're crazy. You almost got us killed. Bill is a badass, though. Can't underestimate him. One time when we were building a house together, punched the fucking wall, and I swear to God, it crumbled to the ground. Witnessed with my own eyes." Bill came to join them, clutching his stomach and groaning. Bill managed to finally ask, "What the fuck did you idiots do?" "I don't feel like walking all day again. Let's just get to the bus station," says Frank. With what money, you retard?" asks Doug. "Leave that up to me," says Frank. "Jesus, Frank." Douglas shakes his head. They arrive at the bus station. "Well, Frank, your move," says Douglas. "I got this," says Frank. Gentleman walks past them. Frank gets up and approaches him. Doug watches. "The hell? Get away from me, you sick fuck," yells the gentleman. "No luck, huh?" asks Douglas. "I'm gonna go hang out in the restroom. Maybe I can find a Republican senator in there." Frank enters the restroom. Douglas looks over at Bill, and Bill has his eyes closed, with his hands together, engaging in a silent form of glossolalia, with only his lips moving, but devoid of sound. Bill is rubbing his belly. Doug shakes his head. About 20 minutes later, Frank comes out of the bathroom. Douglas looks over at him. "I got some ching. Sorry. "Whose dick did you have to suck this time?" asked Douglas. "No, not at all, Douglas. Simply handy this time." Douglas shakes his head. "Doesn't that shit gross your girlfriend?" "Gross is a state of mind that needs to be overcome, Douglas. It is human weakness. When you rather live in a world where you didn't find things gross, especially if engaging in an activity promoted the further advancement in whatever goal you have set for yourself." "Easier said than done," says Doug. "What we enjoyed was a choice. Anyone that was in distress would be a masochist." "Well, that's the fun of a challenge. The hard part, isn't it?" asks Frank. Doug doesn't say anything. Frank tosses a few bucks at Doug and says, "Procure me a drink, Douglas." Doug gives him a look. "Come on now. There's a convenience store adjacent to this building. Get something alcoholic this time. I feel like singing dithyrambs to Dionysus for a change, to take a break from following the light of Apollo. Or I can go get my own drink, and it'll be your turn next in the restroom," says Frank. "Well, I guess that'll just have to be alright." Bill snaps out of the trance and says, "Oh, give me one too. My stomach is still killing me." Doug returns with the alcohol, and they sit right outside the bus station while drinking. "Thought said you were going straight edge, Mrs. Ziska," says Bill. No. I specifically use the term semi-straight edge," says Frank. "There's no such thing, Frank. Even better, it means I'm an innovator now." Doug asks, "Tell me about this semi-straight edge business, Frank. How does it work?" "Well," Frank says, "it provides the ultimate freedom of being right in the middle without prison bars on my left or prison bars on my right. It means that I'm not imprisoning myself by refusing to try a certain substance for arbitrary reasons, but at the same time, I won't let myself become imprisoned by habits or addictions. I can try whatever I want, so long as I don't become dependent on them, and I have the power of will to do this without total abstinence. You might call me Epicurean, but even Epicurus' perfect moderation was a specific control method. I am free to indulge whenever I may choose, though I rarely choose to engage at all. And when I do, it isn't to escape this rule, but only to amplify my enjoyment of reality." Frank looks at Bill, who is still clutching his belly, and says, "Bill, are you alright?" "I'm fine." The bus arrives, and our trio of adventurers begin their approach through Gatlinburg and into the Smoky Mountains. "I should have told you to pick me up something to eat," says Frank. "Well, too late now," says Douglas. Frank reaches around under his chair and puts his hand to the floor. He finds a chip and throws it in his mouth. Doug shakes his head. "Frank, I just have no more words left for this shit." Frank says, "If what you're going to eat isn't going to taste bad or cause you any health problems, why dig for psychologically gross issues for reasons not to eat a certain food? Doug says, eating chips off the floor of a public bus might not be the healthiest shit to eat, Frank. Frank shrugs and says, I'll take my chances. Doug turns to Bill and says, Frank here used to look forward to kids egging his house so that he could make breakfast. Bill laughs. Doug continues, Hell, one time Frank was eating a chocolate bar inside of a Walmart. I told him he was stealing it, but he told me he returned it to the restroom in about 30 minutes. Bill continues laughing. Douglas says to Frank, I took up for you the other day. Someone said that your mom was easy, but I told them it took you a lot of work. Frank continues looking out the window, seeing the bus pass go-kart arenas and bungee diving stations, but not responding. Frank, I'm implying that you used to fuck your mother. You there, Frank? Frank starts laughing. What? Asks Douglas. Diogenes and fur, says Frank. The fuck does that mean? Asks Doug. It would take too long to explain, and explaining it would ruin the fun. I get a kick out of referencing inside jokes that no one gets. And this is one of those ultimate inside jokes, because it's totally inside my head. It's a joke that only my mind and I understand. No one says anything for a moment. Finally, Frank speaks again. Do you know what I like about these public buses the most? Free food, asked Doug. No, I like that no one is wearing a suit. I'm glad I'm not the kind of successful that you have talked about recently, because look at all these people on TV. They all wear the same fucking suits. Maybe they have a different colored tie or something like that, but it's always a goddamn suit. Seeing suits makes me sick. Not that I have a problem with them intrinsically, but I just wish politicians and television pundits would change up their wardrobe every once in a while. But now look at these poor people on this bus and the poor people you see shopping at Walmart. These are the people who always wear something exciting and unpredictable. Douglas interrupts and says, like those goofy fucking pajamas? Precisely, and the best thing about pajamas is that they come in a variety of colors and styles. But some people don't even wear don't even wear pants. Huh, sounds familiar, Douglas interrupts again. Or shirts. I don't know whether it is because they don't give a fuck or not, but I appreciate the visual variety that they offer my eyes, so I'm glad for it. When's the last time you got laid, Frank? Asked Douglas. Do the hand jobs and blowjobs count? Douglas shakes his head. You know, Douglas, I think women might be right when they say that a man thinks with his penis. I think the brain must be in the penis, Douglas, and I think it would explain a lot. That's why men think with them and women don't think at all. Is that something the wise testically spoke of? Asked Frank. I think so, says Douglas. It makes me wonder just how big of a dick Einstein had on him. And Tesla, too. And what are you thinking about over there, Bill? Asked Frank. I hear when you flush your toilet, the fecal matter will rise up and spread out onto all your bathroom items, such as your toothbrush. Wonder if that's true. Douglas says, well, that would explain that shitty grin you always have on your face. Bill smiles. Douglas says, you two sure can fuzzle the fuck out of me. Bill is always speaking about Jesus or random shit. And Frank, you're always saying meaningless philosophical shit. You're thoroughly unpractical, Frank says. My philosophical premises allowed me to get us bus tickets, didn't it? Douglas says, I don't think it was philosophy that made you good at sucking dick or jerking off cocks. Really, Frank, what good is philosophy for? Will it get me a job? How about a car or a beach house? No, philosophy probably won't do any of those things, but all those things you do for philosophy. How so? How do you do that? Asked Doug. Well, why is it that you want those things? Asked Frank. Because they would make me happy. How do you know? Asked Frank. And what about them would make you happy? How long will they keep you happy? Douglas speaks. Alright, I'm not going down this path with you again. It takes too much time. It's common sense why I want those things. And the common people known for their excellent sense of sense, aren't they? God dang, he's Frank. Are you fucking with me? You like it fucking with Bill, don't you? Or you like fucking with Bill, don't you? Suddenly the bus breaks down. Doug speaks. Well, guess the gods are after me again. Just my luck. I guess that'll just have to be alright, though, won't it, guys? Oh, guys, in all seriousness, this is a really bad sign. We should get off this bus, I think, says Bill. Calm down, says Frank. I was sort of joking first, you know. Maybe Bill's right. I'm starting to get that feeling too, you know? Says Doug. Oh, you fucking retard, says Frank. I expect this from Bill, but come on, Douglas, you're smarter than that. You know there is no God. Doug says, no, it's not God, it's karma. Karma, what have we done wrong? Asks Frank. Maybe it's you sucking all those dicks, I don't know, but I know this is a bad sign, says Douglas. Oh, for fuck's sake, Doug. Karma exists, and why did Anne Frank die so young and in such poor condition? And why are shitty businessmen like Donald Trump and Rupert Murdoch still alive and living the good life? Does that make sense to you? And karma requires judgment of justice. How can you have judgment without a conscious being that is doing the judging? And if this omnipotent justice exists, what can you call it other than God? No, Douglas, if you believe in karma, then you must also believe in God. The two are inextricable from each other, rants Frank Ziska. Look, I just feel it, okay? I don't have time to rack my brain over your bullshit sophistry. Bill and I are getting off this bus and we'll walk the rest of the way to the Smoky Mountains. Join us if you like, says Douglas. Frank shakes his head. Fine, you fucking superstitious morons. I'll entertain your bullshit. The three of them depart from the potentially haunted bus and begin their trek again on foot. They walk through the beautiful town of Gatlinburg in Tennessee. And they drove through Pigeon Forge and saw those, the go-karts and stuff. They finally arrive at the Smoky Mountains. Well, this is our final venture in the tree state, boys. So let's pick a proper trail to walk on. We'll only get one shot, so make it a good one, says Frank. Ooh, this one looks good. You can walk behind a waterfall. It's called Grotto Falls, says Bill. Well, let's do this shit, shall we? Asks Douglas. Yes, let's, says Frank. Our trio of adventuring vagabonds walks up the steep, tree-infested mountain. They see beautiful streams as they go, and they look over the edge of the cliffs and see beautiful vistas. Finally, they reach the climax. They see the waterfall, and they stand behind it, looking out through the translucent, crashing waves. Frank Ziska sticks his head out into the water and says, "Come on, fellas, let's get wet." "No," Doug says, "I'm just enjoying the view." Bill, clutching his stomach again, begins to rant for the first time. "Guys, how can you see these beautiful creations and doubt for a second that there is a God? I'll become an atheist once I see the Mona Lisa paint itself, but until that day comes, I stand back in awe. Look at the trees here. Look at those birds. Look at the water. How can this exist without a painter? Did the canvas fall on land in just the right organization of paint?" Frank is still enjoying the waterfall and says nothing. Doug speaks up. "Yeah, well, if God is such a swell painter, why is it he gave up after he painted the earth, huh? Why do you abandon the universe to utter chaos? Tell me that then, Bill. Why do you abandon us?" Bill continues his rant. "Because everyone stopped believing." Doug says, "Do you know how many Christians there are in the world, Bill? They call themselves Christians, but then they mock every person that really believes. They tell us that the Bible is up to subjective interpretation. They justify homosexuality, even though the Bible expressly forbids it. It says it right there in the Bible, but yet these nominal Christians think they can interpret the words of God in their own way. And you call those Christians? I was gifted with the Holy Ghost, and God talks to me personally. I was given the ability to speak in tongues by Jesus himself. Yet Christians call me crazy. I wouldn't mind being called crazy by people that didn't accept that label, but coming from people that think they believe as I do, it's downright insulting. They should know better. Sometimes I think maybe Nietzsche had a point. Not that God is dead, but that the ability for the common man to know God, that is dead. The day when I could speak to my fellow believer about the truth of heaven and salvation is over. Now every liberal Christian tells me that atheists, homosexuals, and Muslims go to heaven. Not just heaven, but their own form of heaven. They think that you can choose your afterlife, like you can choose what restaurant you want to eat at. What the fuck is wrong with these fools? They will burn in hell. And you, Douglas, you will burn in hell if you don't change your ways. Frank as well, but he isn't listening now. And you think I say this as an enemy, but I don't. I say this as a friend. The nominal Christian doesn't care what happens to your soul. But I warn you, like a man shouting at a kid standing in front of an oncoming train. I say, "Get off the trucks, you fool, or you'll be run down, and your guts will coat the tracks." So it's supposed to be trucks. "So when I tell you how horrible your suffering will be in hell, understand why I do it. Because my duty is Christian." Let me go and repeat that again. Just because I had it written down fucked up. "But I warn you, like a man shouting at a kid standing in front of an oncoming train. I say, get off the tracks, you fool, or you will be run down, and your guts will coat the tracks. So when I tell you how horrible your suffering will be in hell, understand why I do it. Because my duty as a Christian." Douglas pauses for a moment and says, "I think, despite the fact that you are a fool about this matter, I respect you in a way for saying it like you did. I can understand how you feel, Bill. However, to be honest, that really doesn't sound that bad to me. I'm sure it'll adjust the temperature after a few hundred years, and the winches but I'll always be pleasant. You jest, Douglas, you jest. But these are serious matters, so I wish this one time you would try to speak seriously. Frank pisses me off sometimes, but at least he's serious about matters, says Bill. Fine then, Bill, let me ask you this. How many people, percentage-wise, do you think will end up in hell? Asked Douglas. I'd say at least maybe 90%, if not more, but I'm not the judger, so I couldn't say for sure. So you're telling me that God's job is to educate us and save our soul, and yet he fails 90% of the time? With a failure rate like that, any teacher would be fired, Bill. Frank steps out from the waterfall and jokes. Obviously, Doug, you never attended community college. Doug speaks again. Besides, Bill, if I had a choice, I'd be a Scientologist. It's the best religion money can buy. You know, Frank became religious the other day. Yeah, he looked in the mirror and found God. Oh, and Bill, the next time you find God, please take a fucking picture. Bill says, well, at least you believe in something, Douglas. Frank doesn't believe in anything. Frank says, when a religious person says that an atheist believes in nothing, it is more telling of how few things a religious person truly believes in. Bill shakes his head, looking a bit despondent, and says, if religion is blind optimism full of wishful thinking, then atheists are blind cynics. Frank looks up at the sky and says, come on, guys, we have to get to North Carolina to finish this up. They find another train leading out of Tennessee and in North Carolina. North Carolina, come on and raise up. Take your shirt off and spin it like your head, like a helicopter. I just thought of that song. So 2001 nostalgia. Anyway, and they hop into another boxcar. Douglas throws his guitar case inside and opens up. Alright, good friends, let's play a goodbye song for Tennessee. How about Don McLean's Castle in the Air? Bill, for once, isn't saying much. Frank turns to Douglas and nods. Douglas begins playing. They are about to arrive in North Carolina. Guys, here it comes. Are you excited or what? This is what we worked hard to accomplish, says Doug. I'm ready, says Frank. Are you ready over there, Bill? Asks Doug. Bill doesn't respond. Douglas walks in and shakes him. Douglas stands there for a moment. Frank, I think Bill is dead. What? Frank walks up to Bill and starts shaking him frantically. He's not moving, Frank. Frank turns over and slaps his face. Frank, don't do that. It's fucking disrespectful. I'm trying to wake him up, you fool. He's not dead. Why would he be dead? He was clutching his stomach the whole time. I'm not sure if you noticed. You were always spacing out in abstract thought. But I saw it. I didn't know it was this bad, but Frank looks at Douglas and says, then it's my fault. I brought this along because I was acting like an idiotic fool that passed those little shits earlier. No, of course it ain't your fault, man. You know what was going to happen. You aren't psychic. Things have unforeseen consequences. You can't beat yourself up over it. Frank sits down looking emotional for the first time, not yet crying. Doug pauses a moment and says, well, what are we going to do with the body? Bury it? He says, what's the point? Chunk that shell out of the train. Are you fucking with me again, Frank? This is Bill. No, it isn't. It's a shell. It's like keeping old clothes and saying that the clothes are your friend because you used to wear them. Bill's consciousness, or soul if you prefer, is no longer in there. Do you understand me, Douglas? Douglas says, well, it seems disrespectful. Frank responds, it's not disrespectful to Bill. You only find it disrespectful yourself because you haven't analyzed the situation properly. Now I'll grab the legs and you grab the arms, and let's toss him into the woods. Maybe the animals can eat his flesh and they can go to a good cause. Just like giving away an old sweater so that someone else can find some use in it. Bill won't need this old carcass anymore, whether he's in heaven or Candyland or non-existent. This thing no longer serves a purpose for him. Douglas shakes his head and follows the advice, and they chuck Bill outside of the car. The wise Testicles says, you may lose everyone you love, but a necrophiliac will love everyone you've lost, says Douglas. Frank responds, we can either laugh or cry in these situations, Doug, and I think you've made a noble choice. It was a joke, maybe in bad taste, but I'm still not laughing. Well, it's a start. I just feel bad that Bill never got to finish the mission, you know? I wish I had at least been able to make it to North Carolina before departing, you know? God dang it, I don't know, says Douglas. Doug, the point of goals isn't to accomplish them while living, but rather to give you a distraction before you die. It's fine for him to die like this, like a soldier dying in the line of duty. The most depressing thing in the world would be to meet every goal you have set for yourself while you remain living. It would be like a movie that has reached its climax, but the credits never stop rolling. Frank pauses for a moment and says, Douglas, We must give ourselves goals. We must keep improving ourselves every day. We must compensate for our deteriorating health and our soul being sucked out slowly into the void, which is the final destination. As long as you are alive, you have time to do the things you regret not doing. And when you die, you have no awareness of regrets. So no one should worry about dying with regrets. Death is our home. Life is our travel vacation. Before we were alive, we were dead. And when our vacation is over, we return back to our default state. We return home. We are just renting these bodies like a getaway beach house. And we have to deal with the accumulated depreciation of them. But, Doug, I don't want to live life as an Ouroboros eating my own tail slowly as life fades away, Frank continues. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we should kill our fantasies. When you have a fantasy, you feel a sense of jealousy toward those that you think got to experience that fantasy. By living out what you imagine to be great, you get to kill that fantasy for both you and the target of your envy. You get to share a knowing glance with the person that says, "That's it." Maybe that's why the rich are more likely to kill themselves than the poor. The poor can stand in shit while looking at the mountain tops with some struggling to escape the shit, while the rich stand atop and get the full view. That's a whole shit mountain, and when they look up, they see nothing more to climb upwards for. At least when you have nothing, you have the hope of something to look forward to. But what happens when you have everything and realize that everything is shit? Is it better to have nothing and think everyone has something better than you? Or to have everything and realize ultimately it is nothing? Goals are just waypoints on shit mountain, Doug, and I'm not sure if we should ever hope to reach the top or not. Doug disappears deep in pensive contemplation for a moment, but then turns to his buddy and asks, "So, Mr. Frank Ziska, what's next?" The